Vidhammer Fantasy.
Welcome back to Vidhammer. I'm Spudlow, and in this video, I'm bringing you the first round matchup at a tournament I played at Darkside Comics in September of 2013. In this video series, I'm playing the Skaven, and in the first round, I'm going up against a High Elf player using the new High Elf rules. I was not familiar with the new High Elf rules, and this was my first game back in about 8 or 9 months. And it shows. I kind of get pummeled a little bit. I think that I'm doing well through most of the game. Very poor decisions. But I'm really not. The fact that I have to go back and edit the entire video didn't make things any better. Let me give you a quick rundown of the list that I'm using. In this first scenario, it's a closed list, so I don't know entirely what my opponent has. I run through a little bit of the things that are out there, the units as they come into play. Mainly, he's got a dragon, he's got a couple of flying chariots, which I hadn't fought against before. They really weren't that big of a problem, but I thought that they were, and that threw me off in more than a few ways. As far as the infantry troops, there really wasn't much of a problem. The only big problem was the big cavalry block that comes in and does some nasty things. For me, let me go through the characters first. I've got a Grey Seer, which I take with the Power Scroll. Best way to take a Grey Seer, it cuts your casting cost in half. For Dreaded 13th, there's no better way of going about it, as long as you're carrying a second character, which I am, Plague Priest. Level 2, of course, I need him for the Plague Furnace that I put with my Plague Monk unit. He carries the Dispel Scroll, and the Grey Seer I go ahead and give the Talisman of Preservation to, 4+ ward save. Since you're going to be throwing a lot of dice, more than likely you're going to end up getting some Irresistible Force. You want something to make your character survive, or at least have the potential to survive. Other characters, I've got the Warlock Engineer, the mobile artillery guy. He's a level 1. I take him with that so that he can carry the Warp Energy Condenser and the Doom Rocket. Doom Rocket's a must-have for 30 points. There's no better cost effectiveness as far as the Skaven goes. The Warp Energy Condenser helps since the Warlock Engineer can take Warp Lightning as his signature spell. And that gives you 2 extra bonus hits and lets you generate a few more dice. It's always good to have more dice than your opponent. Only other character is the Chieftain, BSB, and I give him Skaven Brew so that he can try to buff up the Storm Vermin, because I always have him start in there, to try to get at least one unit out of the Skaven to be decently powerful. That unit being the Storm Vermin, 36 of them. I attach a Poison Wind Mortar to this one, and I give them the Razor Standard. Of course, I think both games that I play, I forgot that I had the Razor Standard. Go me. But with the Razor Standard and the Skaven Brew effect, if you get a decent Skaven Brew effect, you can have a pretty decent combat effective unit. It's not awesome, but it's one of the best that the Skaven are able to put out there. The other being Plague Monks, of course, if you take the Plague Mana, which I do. But you really only have one round of good fighting with them, and you're still only Strength 3, even with the poisoned attacks. So if you go against a unit that has great weapons, you're going to get your butt handed to you. But they do make a decent unit, not elite, but at least decent, especially if you've got the Plague Furnace there that manages to do something other than just blow up on you. For other infantry units, I've got a 50 block of Slaves, something to tie up the opponent's hordes. A 25 block of Clan Rats, mainly to be a bunker for the Grey Seer, or to be a redirecting unit, depending on what the situations are. And I go ahead and put a Poison Wind Mortar with them as well. Other than that, it's 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, a Doom Wheel, and a unit of 5 Rat Ogres and a Pack Master, one of the Rat Ogres being Masterbred. This one is kind of a toss-up between it or a Hell Pit Abomination. They're about the same points-wise. I'm probably going to try playing with the Hell Pit Abomination next time, since when I've got the Rat Ogres, for some reason I never put them in a good spot, and I'm never able to make them as effective as they should be. but that's some mental blockage and bad choices on my part, and that's what I get for being away from the game for a while. So this first round, I go up against the High Elves. We'll see how that goes. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll have the second and third round games up just after that. So here you go. So as we deploy here, one thing to realize is that this is a closed list engagement, mainly because one of the victory, extra bonus victory points is for killing the highest priced item on your opponent's list. So you know where the item is, but you don't know what it is. So in order to keep from knowing what it is, we have closed lists. There's also extra points for controlling different terrain types. When I go for my deployment, I put my slaves down toward the center, and I quickly put my war machines behind them, just to try to give me a chance to see how he's deploying things. His first unit down is the Sea Guard in the center, about a block of 30 of them in horde formation. Then he's got a block of cavalry that go up top. Most of his stuff, when he puts them down, he's got 2 flying chariots that are rather interesting that he uses kind of on his end caps. He also has a big block of cavalry that come in down at the bottom, cause me a great deal of pain. And he's got a dragon that's up top, kind of equal with his house once everything gets put down. Now I put my clan rat bunker close to the house for cover, and hopefully I can flee into it if I need to. Or not flee into it, but run into it. My plague furnace I put above the house when I see some of his strength starting to come up there, because I know it's going to be a little ways away from the BSB, and it's the one thing that can stand by itself because it's unbreakable and it has a pretty decent punch to it. My storm vermin, I kind of go to the center, just below the slaves, to try to match up with something. Then my rat ogres and my doom wheel I put down bottom after he puts his cavalry out. I move the rat ogres back a little bit, trying to make it harder for him to charge them, because I'd rather he charge the storm vermin, and then I can bring the rat ogres in on the flank. And as for the doom wheel, I just kind of want it out of the way so it doesn't end up busting up my own units. Character-wise, I put the Chieftain BSB in with the storm vermin so he can give them Skaven brew at the start, and I put the Grey Seer in with the clan rat bunker. For spell generation, he has only a level 2. He said he took high magic, but I'm not real familiar with how things are now. But he's got one spell where he regains D3 wounds to a model, and another where he's got 4d6 strength 3 attacks, each of which give a +1 to the ward save for units within 6 inches. For me, my Plague Priest gets Cloud of Corruption and Vermintide, Warlock Engineer gets Warp Lightning, and the Grey Seer gets Howling Warp Gale, which I drop for the Dreaded 13th, Plague, Wither, and Bless with Filth. I also get 3 Warpstone tokens, and the Storm Vermin drink the Skaven Brew and get Death Frenzy. So my first turn movement here, the Doom Wheel runs out, and I actually move the Rat Ogres back so they're out of the firing range. I move the Grey Seer in range for spells, and I kind of inch the slaves forward. Magic ends up 5 versus 3, and I go for 5 for Plague on the Sea Guard, that horde block in the center. I get Irresistible Force. My mage takes a wound, or his mage takes a wound from the shot. 10 Sea Guard die, a little less than average, but it happens. The spell ends, and the Grey Seer loses the spell and 1 level in the Irresistible Backlash. We move on to shooting, and the Doom Wheel zaps the cavalry for a couple of wounds. Then I fire off the Doom Rocket, hoping this is going to do good, but it falls short. Irritating. The first Warp Lightning Cannon just sticks into the mud, doesn't do anything. The second one gets a decent hit, but it only scores a couple of wounds. And then to the Poison Wind Mortars, the first one gets a direct hit, only kills 1 guy. Second one shoots for those archer chicks and misfires and explodes, taking out 2 clan rats in the process. Boom. And there it goes. See you, buddy. Over to his turn, the cavalry are able to pull off a charge on the Doom Wheel because it's sticking out just a little bit around that skull section. That causes me some problems. with the bad rat ogres back, it's really bad. His upper units move in on the plague furnace, not real close, but they're there, including the dragon, which doesn't go too well. Magic ends up 10 versus 6. He uses 4 for Apophis to regain 1 to regain the wounds to his character. I didn't know what his other spell was yet, so I let that one go. But for each successful casting, he increases his ward save by 1, so he gets that one off. And then he uses 6 dice for Soul Clench. His ward save goes to a 5+, and he loses... Yeah, he loses a few things in the backlash there, but no problems. Shooting, Seaguard, the little sisters there in the center, and the Seaguard themselves shoot for my clan rat bunker and take out about 8 rats, but I end up passing my break test. The bolt thrower shoots them as well. Yeah, the Seaguard, the sisters, and the bolt thrower all chime in for a little bit. There's the bolt thrower working its way toward my Grey Seer, but it doesn't quite make it. Then we fly down to combat, where the wheel fails to do anything in its first little crushing thing. The cavalry end up getting 4 wounds, but I actually save 3 of them on a 5+ armor save. I'm like, yay! Happy times. They survive. The rat crew doesn't do anything. I realized that I didn't have him take a terror check, which is irritating before the charge, but oh well. I lose the combat, the doom wheel runs about 16 inches, and the cav pursue, but they don't catch them. It's over to my turn. So, movement. The Plague Monks, I go for the charge on the cavalry, and I aim the rat ogres at the chariot, hoping that I can overrun off the board out of the cavalry's charge arc. The Plague unit fails the charge, but the rat ogres make it, which is nice. And the doom wheel rallies. For a late action here, I end up taking my effects of Death Frenzy to kill off a few storm vermin. Then I march them forward, and then do a little jostling with the slaves and stuff to try to protect my Grey Seer. Magic ends up 11 versus 6. I have the Warlock Engineer do 2 dice for Warp Lightning on the sisters and take out a couple of girls. 3 for Bless with Filth on the Storm Vermin, that goes through, and then 6 for the dreaded 13th on the Swordmaster unit, which he fails to dispel, and then the whole unit gets turned into clan rats. Yay! More rats on the board, always fun. Shooting, Doomwheel restrains from zapping the ogres. The first Warp Lightning Cannon misfires, but nothing crazy. Second shoots for the dragon and does 3 wounds. Then the Poison Wind Mortar drifts into the Seaguard for a single wound. Combat at the bottom. The rat ogres take out the chariot. Oh, wait, we're still... Never mind, go back. Alright, there's the shot, drifting. Alright, all's good. Still good. Combat, down there. Let's go for it. Yep, right there. Bring it on. We do some stuff. Rat ogres end up taking out the chariot and overrunning off of the board. I take, I believe, 2 wounds in the process. I don't lose a rat ogre, but I take 2 wounds on stuff. And which is good for me. I got them where I wanted them to be, which is off the board. All kinds of happy goodness there for right now. Too bad it doesn't last very long. Yeah, roll them rat ogres, buddy. See ya! Out of the way. Over to his side, he charges with the upper cav, the chariot, and the dragon into the plague unit, and the lower cav charge the doom wheel again. All of my units have to hold, and he makes all of his distances. Things don't look good for the plague furnace right here, but that's how it happens. The character runs out of the Archer Chick's unit into the Sea Guard, leaving 1 left behind, who moves up and basically takes the role of a redirector at this point. There's the dragon, yep, everybody made it. Magic ends up 8 versus 6. He rolls 6 dice to try to bring back wounds to the dragon, but I use all my dice to dispel it. He only had 1 spell left, and he tries it on the Storm Vermin, but the casting cost comes up just short. Now for shooting, he shoots everything into the Storm Vermin, takes out 7. That's the 1 Archer Chick in front and the remaining Sea Guard. It's not enough to cause a panic test, but they're frenzied anyway, so they're doing fine. Storm Vermin, they're expendable. All slaves are. Doom. How many shots do you get? No, we're in combat. Down there, Doom Wheel. Doom Wheel's taking it. And the Doom Wheel continues to take it. Ends up hitting me with a lot of stuff. Still doesn't kill me off, but I run off the board, and he returns to face me. Not so happy times. Then we go to our upper combat. I use the Plague Banner. I'm able to kill off, I believe, 3 cavalry, and I lose about 20 Plague Monks to everything he's got coming in. You know, impact hits, Thunderstomp, his character, his dragon, all that stuff. Just chews into those Plague Monks. I mean, they're toughness 4, but you still got no armor. And you take it pretty big time. Since it's his turn, I get none of the good stuff out of my Plague Furnace, except for the toughness test at the very beginning, the Enshrouded by Fog effect, which I actually lost a couple of Plague Monks to that myself. At this point, unfortunately, the Plague Furnace is only in combat with the cavalry, so I'm only doing toughness tests on them. I'd really like to have the dragon in there, but the way maximizing combat worked out, he was able to get it to where he's not touching the Plague Furnace, because I have 4 models on that side. He's touching the 4, but not the Plague Furnace. Not so happy for me. I always tend to overestimate or underestimate the ability of that plague unit. Either I use them on something where it's completely overpowered and I decimate something and ride through it and the other side of my line is collapsing the entire time. Or I put it out there to try to soak up as much as I can, and it does, but it dies in the process. Back over to my turn, I have the Storm Vermin charge, the lone archer, who takes the stand and shoot reaction, kills off 1 person. He doesn't think that I can move with the Rat Ogres since they came back on the board. I thought that I could, but since this is my first game back, I'm not worried about it too much. I'm not going to stress the issue, but I did look it up. Yes, I could have moved. I moved the Slaves and the Grey Seer into the house and moved the Clan Rats up. Magic ends up 5 versus 2. I use a Power Scroll and eat a Warpstone token to cast Dreaded 13th on the Sea Guard. That takes out 12 models, almost killing him. Then for shooting, trying to keep my Rat Ogres alive, I fire at the cavalry on the bottom. Poison Wind Mortar gets 2, the first cannon gets a rear rank, and actually kills off all 3 of them, which is awesome. But the second one comes up just short, leaving just 5 guys there. That's rough. Combat for the center is pretty simple. The Storm Vermin killing the 1 archer and then overrunning and just being able to nick that edge of the Sea Guard, but I can't get his character into combat, which is kind of rough. It means there's no way I'm going to be able to kill him on the bottom half of this turn. Up top, all but the last 2 Plague Monks die. I get a couple of cavalry off, but I fail to wound the dragon with the Plague Sensor, which is my only real... The Wrecker attack is my only real chance to actually do some damage on that dragon, and he was in combat after the casualties were lost. But I still didn't manage to do any wounds to him. I had 3 wounds down, but couldn't finish him off. Kind of rough, but oh well. Gotta take it sometimes. Back over for High Elves. The cavalry charged the Rat Ogres. We weren't sure if it was a flank or a front charge, so we rolled on it and ended up with the front. They smack into me, do some damage. They don't kill me off entirely, but they do a good deal. But I'm not able to do enough wounds in return. I get killed off. And in Magic, it's 9 versus 5. He uses 4 dice to try to regain wounds on the dragon again. Knowing it says only spell, and that I've got a Dispel scroll left, I let him go ahead and fire that. And then he used 5 for Soul Clench on the Clan Rats and got Irresistible. Lost 7 Clan Rats past the break test, but lost a guy in the backlash. And now we've got the battle going on for the Rat Ogres that I was talking about earlier in the Magic phase. So just swap those 2. And then upper combat, my Plague Furnace, Plague Priest, and remaining Plague Monks die off, and I was not able to kill either the cavalry or the dragon. That's a big point loss for me, and you'd figure that I'd be able to make up some of the difference in the middle combat
And I guess since there were so few Seaguard left, I thought that we had already fought that combat, because we just don't fight it. We tally up the totals, and that's all. So I suppose I thought I already did it, but we hadn't. There was no way I could kill off the mage, so I wasn't going to get the character. It wasn't possible. But if I'd killed off the unit, it still would not have gotten me a victory anyway. I would have lost by about 170 points, as opposed to like the over 500 that I ended up losing at. Would have been a much closer margin, but I still wasn't pulling out a victory on that one.
So that's all for round 1. Didn't do awesome, but hey, I wasn't expecting to do very much of anything this round. And shortly into the match, I realized that I just want to play the game and not really care about too much else. If you want to check out the second round, I go up against the vampire counts here. In the third round, I get the bye, so I will have a video up, but I'm not going to be in it. It's going to be the ogres versus the dark elves. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, keep fighting.